Center and Joe Parisi, as well as our communities and our neighbors who might not be quite as aware of what's going on. I am originally from Austin, Texas, a city that I know the mayor to actually be quite fond of. I lived there until my mid-20s, and at 15 years old, I found myself living on the street, sorry. Become extra emotional. I was 5'2", 95 pounds, soaking wet, severely depressed, and completely lost.
Go girl. It's okay. We're here now. Go girl.
For a while, I kept to myself, and I tried to figure out how to survive. I felt it easier to find places to sleep and food to eat when I didn't have anyone with me who might scare away approval or offerings. This put me at greater risk of experiencing violence. I found myself the victim of sexual assault and other violent crimes a number of times before this part of my life was over. Later, I learned that this was extremely common and even expected in my situation. It was difficult for me to trust anyone, but eventually I did out of necessity. After some time, I got to know most of the homeless folks in Austin. And from then on, I was more often than not in the company of someone else. During the day, it was common to be approached by Austin police and interrogated. An officer named Santiago was particularly fond of writing me tickets just by my explanations that I could not afford to buy my own meal, let alone pay for a ticket. For sitting on the steps with permission of a church on Guadalupe Street, he would write me a ticket for camping. If I was smoking at the time, he'd write me a ticket for minor possession. He would then tell me to put my cigarette out. I would, and he would hand me a ticket for littering. He would smile and say, "See you tomorrow." This went on for a couple of years, and as the tickets piled up, a cycle of tickets turning into warrants began. I was fed once a day, a few times a week, through a local program. I also benefited from their closet occasionally when I could find shorts that fit or clean socks or toothpaste. It was the only thing besides a shower that helped me feel like a human being. I had to fend for myself the rest of the time. This often included staying up late to wait outside a pizza or bagel shop so that I could catch them throwing out the unsold food before it went into the dumpster. If I missed this opportunity, I could usually rely on the food already being in the dumpster. But being so small, it was difficult for me to get in the dumpster in the first place. I eventually tried and became addicted to heroin. It was a favorite among the younger homeless. It was easy to fall into for those suffering from bipolar disorder and other depressive mental illnesses. I gave up most of my food money for the drug instead, as it seemed convenient since it also suppressed my appetite and helped me forget that I felt like a subhuman. I experienced things that no one really wants to hear, and few can handle knowing. I eventually found a church that gave me permission to sleep on their property in a hidden spot. They knew that I was vulnerable and that was the best they could do. And it was the safest place that I had found, and I was grateful. One night, unaware that I had permission to be there, a janitor called the police on me. They found me in the middle of fixing with a needle in my arm. They arrested me and they sent me straight to the detention center. Being a juvenile worked in my favor. I was forced to spend a large amount of time in this detention center, which I later realized was harder than any jail. When my time there was done, I was still a juvenile, but no one in my family wanted to claim responsibility. I was sent to an inpatient rehab facility where I lived until the day I was 18. Both of these experiences were great for me, actually. I got clean, I received counseling, good counseling on a regular basis, and I learned a lot. I relapsed, but I found my way back. Eventually, I was very lucky to have been offered a chance to be trained as a prep cook in a rundown diner. Since then, I've been head cook, I've managed kitchens, and sometimes entire food establishments. I even took a diner on the edge of going out of business to ending up on the Food Network. I went to college for a few years, but dropped out when the Pell Grant funding was cut, as I was uncomfortable being in debt. I'm a fairly new addition to the beautiful city of Madison, but I love it deeply nonetheless. 3 short years ago, my husband and I happily decided Madison was the city we wanted to call home and raise a family in. We began by accepting a job offer here. And one of the many reasons I fell in love with Madison is because I see so much opportunity here as a potential entrepreneur. I'm really looking forward to the day that I can open my own business and do what I love most, which is feeding people. Although many changes occurring here in the past 3 years have made us think about our decision, one issue has been particularly disturbing to me, and that's the ongoing turmoil that surrounds our local homeless population. Many of the approaches being taken to deal with our homeless community are counterproductive. They are not bettering our city or making it more visually appealing or even saving it money. Instead, these approaches are putting an ugly face on Madison, wasting resources and bypassing investment opportunities. When you are homeless, you become a member of a community often shunned by the sheltered community. This becomes your family, your neighborhood, and your neighbors. And when the outside community makes efforts to push you away and displace you and create more obstacles than those that you've already overcome just to be alive, that is the last community that you want to be a part of. It's ugly, it's overwhelming, and it seems dysfunctional and hateful. Why would anyone want to fight to be accepted into a group where there's so much effort is made to ignore someone's existence rather than invest in their potential? I know many would like to believe that making someone feel like an outcast would encourage them to work harder to fit in. Many people actually believe this. This is not unusual. Not only is this false, but it makes them want to stay in that community. They're the neighbors and the family that they know. This shunning often encourages one not to make an effort to advance or change. This judgment and rejection adds to a person's already beaten sense of self. It's difficult to feel like trying when you already question the need to be alive and people make you feel like you don't deserve to be. Looking for employment can be exhausting and difficult for people who have addresses, phone numbers, clean clothes, transportation, childcare. In a bad economy, even with a classy resume and great experience, it can take a person 6 weeks, and in a bad economy, months, and with disabilities, years. Now, what if you didn't get breakfast? Or dinner the night before? How weak do you feel at the end of the day when you haven't had anything to eat? What if you're sore because you slept in the cold and had to wake up and stand in line to get a 5-minute shower only to put on dirty clothes again? What if you had boot rot? What if you spent all your energy the day before riding the buses all over town, trying to make sure that you had the right paperwork and a phone number to provide on an application? All of which I've done. It's pretty exhausting. What if the energy just went to trying to find clothes and food, forgetting that most food affordable and available is not nutritious and it's fast food, empty calories? What if you had to carry everything that you owned on your back because you had nowhere to store it? Imagine showing up at a job interview with a camping backpack on your back. These are real obstacles that the homeless face while trying to gain employment. Not supporting and even cutting services that help keep the homeless fed, clothed, and sheltered only contributes to the ailments that decrease their chances of succeeding. Many are convinced that a tough love approach will somehow force them into a home and a job, and it simply does not work that way. For years, I have been back on my feet. For years after I had been back on my feet and working 40, 50 hours a week, I was still paying off old tickets and warrants. Every time I thought I was going to catch up, I was kicked by having to pay for another camping ticket, seemingly from another life. Every time I felt I had a little extra for groceries, I would have to pay a court fee instead. Overcoming these obstacles is work in itself. So is fighting the stigma that all homeless citizens are lazy and don't want to work. How easily we forget the chances that they could be veterans, or mentally ill, or physically disabled. And the resources for these citizens are diminishing every day. We invest in building large multi-space buildings in hopes to boost the economy in certain areas. East Washington, for example, right now. We must learn to invest in our citizens as well. We are losing potential entrepreneurs, mentors, consumers, volunteers, and even teachers by not doing so. Madison can't be what it is without the contribution of its residents. To hear our mayor state that we do not have the capacity to take care of our homeless implies that our city isn't worth the investment or even the effort. Cloaked in a veil of concern, the idea of spending thousands of dollars on bus tickets to get unsheltered citizens out of the city that they choose to call home encourages the mentality that breeds comments such as, these are quotes that I have actually found. A one-way ticket out of town is far cheaper than monthly rent subsidies and food vouchers. Or, I'm tired of literally stepping over people in the morning. And they need to get a job and quit being drunks. Allowing the banishment of our homeless from the city and the sight of the public is not how we educate people about the issue, and it certainly isn't a way to solve it. No matter what is in the works, spending money moving a dozen people and their personal items miles out of town and miles away from public transportation options is short-sighted and insulting, not only to those who are being banished, but to those who want to see their city actually get better. There's certainly no chance that forcing someone further away from resources, job possibilities, and transportation is going to put them one step closer to independence. The proposals of affordable housing in the form of single-room occupancy rentals puts a glimmer of hope in the eyes of many only to be followed up with incidents of family photographs, warm clothes, and medication being seized or destroyed, or given back soaked in gasoline or garbage juice. Because our city officials can't tell those without a home where they can go, or where they can sleep. Where am I allowed to exist? That is their question, and when being forced from one location to another and being ticketed for sleeping under a bridge, it is a perfectly reasonable one. The city, as it stands, is telling them, nowhere. What it boils down to is our elected officials are bickering over whether certain human beings are worth their time and money or not. These are not excuses for those that do not try. But these obstacles certainly do not help, and the fact is most do try. They try hard, especially in the beginning, but there is only so much trying a person can do when they are alone and have been getting kicked while they're down. There will be those who take advantage. There will be those who aren't as worthy of help. But are we really the kind of city that would accept that as a reason to punish the majority who want to succeed? I do not believe that that is the Madison way. I do not believe that that is the Wisconsin way. I'm now healthy, happy, and successful. I'm able to contribute my skills and my time to my community in hopes of making it better and more beautiful. My husband and I do well, and we support our small local businesses. And yes, I had to work hard to get here, but I wouldn't have been willing to work hard, and I would not be here if I had not had any help. Help that I would have been without had I not been a minor. Had I been an adult, I wouldn't be standing here today. I got help that everyone without a home needs.